Is this on? Well, I'm not used to doing this with the microphone. Well, welcome everyone. I appreciate everyone staying, hanging around and listening to this. I know, Bob, you're up next. I'm not going to be that long. But my name is Marc Stevens. I appreciate everyone being here. And not to cast dispersions, but unlike our friend here, I am going to give advice. I believe as an activist, one of the things we should be doing most is discouraging obedience to the statists. And that if we're not on a regular basis discouraging people and encouraging, well, discouraging people from compliance. I know, you give me the look to my wife over there. I always recommend, well, and on the radio show, which is live right now, well, it's recorded, but the radio show is a No State Project. So as a regular part of the show, what I'd like to do is encourage people to not comply with the tax code or any of the codes that we adhere, and this is why we're here today, because we all believe in the non-aggression principle, right? And as long as we're adhering to the non-aggression principle, whatever laws are consistent with that, okay, they're irrelevant, they're redundant, and anything that's not consistent with the non-aggression principle, we're not going to abide by it anyway. So what, so I do a radio show called the No State Project. It's on the Liberty Radio Network every Saturday from 4 to 7. And we're here instead of the fortified compound in Phoenix, where I said it was going to be a little cooler. It's a hell of a lot cooler. But somebody had asked me before I came up, I don't see him here, but it was on the shirt, which is from my book, Government Indicted, reification is a hell of a drug. And he was asking, what is reification? Well, reification is something that we're all here wanting to discourage. And we're here because we want to get to a free voluntary society. And what's keeping us in a state of society is something called reification. Reification is just a fancy word for when you make something that's abstract in your head and you act as if it's real. Or you force other people to act as if it's real. So one of the most common ones, of course, is that you're in a country, or that you're a citizen, or you're a resident, or that there are cities. These are all reifications. These are taking abstract principles and concepts and acting as if they're real. And so anyone familiar with my show on my website, marcstevens.net, is anybody here, excluding these guys here, have you heard of my Call of Shames? You have, and I know you have. Well, the Call of Shames, now what I do on the Call of Shame is break the reification process, right? These people who are statists and statist types or government types, they actually believe that they're, really, it's this cold? These are people who not only think that there are citizens in states, they think that their mere opinions are real, okay? They actually will tell you that their opinions are statements of fact. One of them is, I'm sorry? Hallucinations. Hallucinations, yes. And I've actually had IRS agents tell me that whether I was a taxpayer was an issue of, or a statement of fact and not a statement of opinion.
But they're voluntary.
Yeah, I actually had, yes, I did. There's a Call of Shame, Kevin, where someone in Canada said to me that the taxes were voluntary. I said, did you just use the word voluntary? And now I actually have one of their form letters that says if you don't pay the tax, you go to jail and you get fined. I can't believe she used the voluntary word with me. But they believe that when they say something, it makes it real. So if you get, for example, in Australia, which I wrote in the first book, they actually have it codified in their own statute thing there that the commissioner down there, the equivalent for the IRS, that their agents can hallucinate something that happened, didn't happen, for the purpose of taxing you. And they can also do a positive hallucination. They can hallucinate that something that never did happen, did, and then tax you. This is one of those things where someone sent it to me, a good friend in Australia, and I didn't believe it, so I looked it up. So if you go to the back of Adventures in Legal Land, which was not in the original, That's how you know you have an original. You don't have the Australian reification in there. You go to near the back of the book and you'll see that statute, it's still on the books. So what I advocate also doing as a part of activism, and I encourage people to do this on the show, is to be able to engage the system. But do so in a way so that as you're learning, you have a low threshold of violence that you have to, obviously, you know, if you're going to go to court, you're opening yourself up to, you know, violence. You could be thrown in jail for contempt or contempt of cop. So what I encourage as a form of activism, so you can learn how to engage them, is to start as working as a journalist or acting as a journalist and engaging city council. Anyone here, how many people have seen the city council confrontations that I've done? You have? On video. So on video I have finally Colby Granville in Tempe, Arizona, just couldn't take it anymore. So if you watch, they're just sitting there, gosh, when is this 5 minutes over? This schmuck from Long Island could shut up. He finally can't take it anymore. And he says, you want to see evidence of jurisdiction? Here's our jurisdiction. We have jurisdiction because we said so. And so Dan's here, and I said, I'm one of those, it's like Caffey at the end of A Few Good Men. So I said, did you get that? Yep. So he wasn't able to, so the entire city council is not able to present one single fact to prove that their laws apply to anybody. So I encourage people to also do that. So what you're doing is what I believe is real journalism. You are gutting the entire presumption of legitimacy that these people have with one or two questions. That's it. And it's breaking the reification process, because what you're doing by asking the question is you are now I don't want to say forcing them, but you're putting them in the situation where they have to think, because they actually believe, and I have this all over the website, and I have this in Arizona, all over the US, Canada, England, and Australia. They believe that if you're physically here in Arizona, not the state of Arizona, you don't need to get into that. This cuts through all that political garbage. If you're physically here in Arizona, then the laws apply. So if X, then Y is the formula. And it doesn't matter if your name is in all caps, because they don't even know that yet. It's all garbage, that stuff, right? They don't care about your name. They don't care about your political bias or your political relationships. You could be from Australia visiting. You're not a resident. You don't live here. You're just physically here. And that's an example of reification. They think that's real, that they really have jurisdiction and authority over you. But when you ask them the follow-up question, now I did this recently with another senior deputy attorney general. It's actually the call of shame for this edition of the No State Project, August 2nd. When you ask them the follow-up question, do you have any actual proof that just because I'm physically here, your laws apply to me? And does anybody who's heard these calls from the politicians themselves heard one single fact that they've given me in response to support that argument? No. And that's something that's really important to understand. So if you're acting as a journalist, and this is really helpful if you've got a parking ticket or a traffic ticket, because when you go into court, you're going to be challenging them on the same exact issues. Because how does the court get jurisdiction over you? How does the cop get jurisdiction over you? If you're physically here, how many times have you been to court and they'll say, if you challenge jurisdiction, the judge will say, what? You're standing right here. So it's that same argument, that reification. So instead of going into court and not really being confident, if we go and challenge them on the phone or we go to city council meetings, ask them. Because there's more people, so if it's more of an issue that you have a problem with public speaking, then going in and asking the Tempe City Council these questions is going to be probably a little bit more intimidating than going into court. But after you have confronted them, safely of course, which is we don't want a violent confrontation, if you do get charged, then when you do go to court, you're a lot more confident and able to withstand what they're going to do to get you to back off. Because what are they inevitably going to do to you if you confront somebody on their and you stop their reification process and they have nothing to go on? Their entire life is based on this single argument, right? I'll say it again. If you're physically in Arizona, then the laws apply. If you're physically in Australia, then the laws apply. And then I or you, we come along and we ask them, do you have any actual proof? They're not going, some of them will maybe, there was a guy in England, a cop in England, he says, I've got nothing, mate. I got nothing. Right? The whole George Costanza thing. But that's rare. Usually, when you confront somebody publicly and they can't prove something so simple that everyone seems to take for granted. I mean, even libertarians, liberty activists will say, they'll try to gaslight me, like the politicians do. Well, Mark, that's ridiculous. You're there. Of course the laws apply to you. Why would you even do that? Where's the proof? Where is the damn evidence? It's all about evidence. And I saw something yesterday that was really interesting. It was coming from a statist of all people who was attacking libertarians. And what I thought was funny was he made a certain proposition, or he says, well, this is common sense. Well, I don't go by common sense. I go by the data. You're a government employee. How much data are you really paying attention to here? You know, I thought it was kind of funny, though. So I don't want to take up too. Hey, he's finally here. I encourage everybody. I encourage everybody to, if you want to see a free voluntary society, that one of the best things that we can do is through, of course, education. And one of the way, and I think the best way to do, one of the best ways to do that, is activism. Because I can get up here and say for 2 hours that there is no government, there is no state, they're just a bunch of killers, thieves, and liars. But it's a heck of a lot more effective when you can hear from the politicians themselves. When you see the reactions from the politicians themselves. Yes, they may not answer the questions. And I want to, real quick before you got a question, another question that we can do, and this is, it's something that I believe completely guts the entire presumption of legitimacy that these people have. And it's one single question that's even better than asking what evidence there is that their laws apply. And that is this. And yes, it's gone through certain changes, and I'll probably do it a little different 6 months or a year from now. Non-entity is actually here today helping film this, so he is real. He's not a non-entity that way. But if you want to really gut the presumption of legitimacy with one question, and it doesn't matter if you're talking with a liberty activist or a die-hard statist, this is it. And I encourage, go to markstevens.net, and I've asked numerous bureaucrats this, and the response is always great. If I was to do business in the same manner as you government types, and I forced people to give me money, would you consider me a criminal? Huh? Now that's what I believe is real journalism that any of us can do. The difficult thing, though, is how do you deal with this raging lunatic if they start flipping out and they're threatening you with contempt of cop or contempt of whatever? That, I believe, is demonstrating to people that government doesn't exist. They're just people, and they're forcing us to pay them. So real quick, and I encourage, listen to the call of shame. It's a really good one. A senior deputy attorney general from New Hampshire, Nicholas Court. And I encourage, well, I want to take the question before we're done.
I just want to say the observation that a little bit of sand in the machine, not a big deal, but when we all start doing what you're advocating, it'll shut down the machine.
Yes, and what he said is, for those on the watching the video, a little bit of sand doesn't do much, but yes, a whole lot. What I would like to see, and I have a number of things that I'm working on that hopefully will be really big next year, is that there are not just a handful of us, me and maybe Dan and a couple of other people, confronting these people. And we're talking in open court where we're willing to plead guilty. It's an unsigned plea of guilty. Will plead guilty right now All you have to do is say yes or no. Has the prosecution presented any facts to prove the Constitution and law apply to me just because I'm physically in Arizona? Imagine 1,000 people doing that. Imagine 1,000 people saying, I will gladly pay your tax. Give me one fact, one piece of evidence that would show the Constitution and laws apply to me because I'm physically in Arizona. That's it. That's all you got to do. Imagine 1,000 people, just 1,000 people doing that. And so recently, and I'll end with this. There's a big, because we talked about this earlier about the Bitcoin, and it had to do with the regulations. And there was a big stink about it on Reddit. And everyone was basically, like half the people was saying Ben Lawsky, but this here is Lawsky. That's irony that shouldn't be lost on anyone. So here he's posting this thing and wants to know what people think about it, and like half the comments were, "Hey Ben, go kill yourself. Try to, or hey Ben, go f yourself." And so it didn't go over too well. And like the previous speaker mentioned that they put it for public comment. I think on the first day or so, their website was crashed. So it's not popular. So I spoke with the spokesman, and I thought, well, if there's already a lot of people opposing this, what if we got Ben Lawsky on the line and did a 4 or 5 minute interview? And what would people think if the guy proposing the regulations couldn't prove they apply to anybody anyway? I figured that would be pretty powerful, right? Maybe there'd be people that would say, more people, not necessarily, hey Ben, go kill yourself, but maybe more people would say, hey Ben, go F yourself, or how about fungal, right? So unfortunately, it's not going to happen. But I do have Matthew Anderson recorded. So the spokesman for the Department of Financial Services, completely unable to show any evidence whatsoever that the laws or regulations apply to anybody anyway. So it's things like that I believe if we get more people doing it, will encourage and inspire more people to not only challenge, but to actually take a step in the right direction towards a voluntary society, a stateless society, by not complying with them. Because that's what it all comes down to. Living with our principle, the non-aggression principle, that it's wrong to initiate force or to threaten force, and not complying with these people, because that's how we're going. Ultimately, that's how we're going to get to it. That's the majority. It's the biggest tool that we have is nonviolent non-cooperation. Again, I appreciate everyone coming out. Were there any questions before? Okay, that means it must have been a great talk. Everyone knows, but I appreciate it. Again, my name is Marc Stevens. The website markstevens.net. Thank you very much, and of course, Jackalope 2014.